Okay, class. So this video is going to help you to understand a little bit more about our final project and what assignments need to be completed. So the first assignment in our final project is the brainstorming assignment. So you have this brainstorming worksheet underneath the handouts folder. This brainstorming worksheet is really a best effort. You can change it throughout the semester. It's a basic what do I want to think about for my final project? As I've said multiple times, your final project is anything that you want it to be. So your final project can be about anything that relates to sociology, or if this is a sociology of the family, sociology of gender, it has to relate to the class. So if I'm doing a sociology 101 topic, I might think about doing something that relates to my field or something that I'm interested in or something that I want my future career to be in. So if I am studying forestry, then I might want to think about some societal or social phenomenon that might affect forestry. So if that's gender inequality within forestry, if that's the barrier to entrance, if that is I should have picked a different one because I'm not 100%, not really well versed on forestry, but you get kind of the idea, right? So if I'm doing sociology of the family, I might think about parenting styles. I might think about courtship. I might think about marriage. I might think about children raising. I might think about the history of the family or the social dynamics of the family, anything that relates to the family. If I'm doing sociology of gender, I might think about the wage gap. I might think about gender norms. I might think about sex assignment surgery for intersex bodies as children. Basically, it's a really good idea for you to go into our content, and under weeks, it'll tell you what we're looking at, if any of those sound interesting, right? So I have a Word document saved for you, which is right here. This is the exact one. So obviously you're going to put your name, what campus you're in. If you're online, you can just do Front Range, the date, and the class, of course. And then some of us are like, oh, I can't edit the boxes. True, right? But you can write in them, right? So you just want to make sure that it is positioned to be in front of the text, and that way you can be in front of this image that I have. So I might want to have a couple different of these text boxes. So let's start with our first topic. What do we want to talk about? So let's say this is Sociology 101, and I want to look at police brutality. So if I'm looking at police brutality, I will put police brutality, right? Obviously that's a little bit high. That's my main topic. So then I want to think about, okay, so what are some ways that police brutality happens, or what are some ways that I think police brutality happens, or why it happens, right? If I want to look at the social constructs or the social narratives that people think about police brutality, I'm going to enter in another text box, right? Let's say right here. I'm going to make sure that this text box is in front. And then I'm going to write people's beliefs. I'm going to have another text box, right? I'll just copy and paste this, make it easier on ourselves. Another one might be police brutality in the history of police brutality, right? I might want to think about the way that gender, right? Does gender affect police brutality? Does race affect police brutality? Sure, right? So then we might want to think about other ideas. Okay, so if people's beliefs, we can do modern beliefs, and then we can do, let's see, we can do in the history, we can kind of, history and people's beliefs kind of fit together. if we look at gender and race, what does that mean about people's perhaps age? What does that mean for maybe their income level? How do all of these things affect police brutality, or how we come to know police brutality, right? So then once I've kind of processed through this stuff, I'm going to start to think about the ways in which police brutality get constructed and what my real question is. What do I want to get out of this? So I'm thinking that I want to see how race and gender affect perception of police brutality. Sure, why not, right? That's a starting thing. So then I can save that, right? So let's start with that. So my final project is going to be on something that relates to me or is of interest to me. Here are some other resources. Our next assignment is more than likely going to be the annotated bibliography. Again, the annotated bibliography is best effort, right? So if I want to think about an annotated bibliography, I have directions online of how to do a bibliography that I allowed for you, that I gave to you, but it's basically going to be your literature review, right? So a bibliography, annotated bibliography is basically your literature review. So you are going to do 1 to 3 paragraphs for each literature or text that you use, and you're going to do very quick, very broad. You're going to look at the thesis, the main points and ideas, and the main conclusion. So you're going to choose 2 to 3 scholarly articles that are peer-reviewed that relate to your idea. If you have any questions about this, please contact the library on how to utilize our website for online databases. So once I have chosen the 3 articles that I want, I write 1 to 3 paragraphs for each. That's my literature review. That's my annotated bibliography. What's nice and what I'm hoping helps throughout the semester is that I will set up these little assignments, or I have set up these little assignments, that by the end of the semester, you will have your entire paper written, basically. So we have our brainstorming, now we have our literature review. You can't really start to work on your paper until you know it's already been said. So once I have my literature review, I've done some research on what other people are researching and what kind of questions are they asking, what are they finding out. It'll start to kind of orchestrate or organize what questions you want to ask. So next assignment is a project proposal outline. Again, name, campus, date, course, approved. This is where my signature goes, or my initial. Did I approve it? Yes or no, right? You have to have all of your projects approved by me. You will submit your project proposal on the Dropbox and I will approve it, yes or no. So then what is your hypothesis? Again, this is a Word document. It is a document that I have created as a Word document so that you can edit it. So what is my hypothesis, or what's my idea, right? That gender, and race affect the ways that people experience police brutality. Cool. Operational definition. So I've put a couple videos on what an operational definition is. It is in the Studying People video. An operational definition is simply a hypothesis that you can measure, right? So gender and race, that's super vague. People experience, also vague. Police brutality, less vague, but it is often misinterpreted or misrepresented. So I want to make sure that I can define that. So I am going to, my operational definition will be to look at the prevalence of people, I'm not the best speller, the prevalence of people, let's say, of African American, Hispanic, white, people who are male and female between the ages of 12 and 29 in the Longmont area. The prevalence of, let's say, police brutality, right, which is defined, whatever definition you want to use, of African American, Hispanic, and white people who are male and female between the ages of this and this and this in the Longmont area. Cool. Let's say from 2002 to today, or 2017. That's my operational definition. I'm going to take all of these vague things and I'm going to break them into things that I can measure. I can measure African American, I can measure Hispanic, I can measure white, I can measure male, I can measure female, I can measure age, I can measure the chronological history from 2002 to today, I can measure Longmont, right? So another thing is your independent and dependent variables. Again, those are in the lectures and within the helpful videos that I supply to you. They are also in other videos that I have online on YouTube that are structured around research methods in case this is an intro class and you haven't taken an intro class, though I strongly suggest that you do before you take any higher division sociology classes. Independent variables are the variables that you control, right? So that you manipulate. The dependent variables are dependent upon those variables that are independent. So if I look at my operational definition, I can see the things that I am already choosing to manipulate. I am going to look at gender, race, right? I have manipulated those as gender is male, female, just for this perspective, as gender is not just male, female. The races of African American, I am going to control for age, right, which is 12 to 29. I am going to control for geography, which is Longmont for this particular one. And I'm going to control for time, which is 2002 to 2017. If you are able to write down these variables first, then you are able to do your operational definition a little bit easier. So then what are the dependent variables? So it's going to be interactions with police, violence with police. Those are some things that I'm going to measure because I can't predict that. I can't control that. Your key terms. Key terms are going to be throughout the book and the lectures. What key terms have we done thus far that would relate to it? This is not a complete now and make sure it's done for the rest of the semester. This is only to help you make sure that you are on the right track. All of this is just to help you. So your dependent variables are things that are dependent upon independent. Your key terms are found in your book. Guess what? Your introduction is just your introduction. Think of some ways that you want to start your paper. If you have any questions about how to start a paper, reference your APA Sociology Simple Sample outline. How do I start an introduction? It's to set the stage. You're defining key terms. You're defining theories and theorists you're going to use. You're going to set your thesis. Here is your thesis, right? Then you're going to have your literature 1 and your citation, literature 2 and citation, literature 3 and citation. We've already done the annotated bibliography, right? It's right here in the literature review. That was our assignment previous. You're just going to write quick statement about what this article is saying, right? And you're going to practice writing your APA citation. What is the second article saying? Or you could just do the title of your second article and then the APA citation. Your research design. Your research design is how you're going to check, how you're going to collect your data. Data analysis. You can do an experiment. You can do a survey interview. You can do an observation. You can do a secondary analysis. What is a secondary analysis, you ask? Why, it's movies, photos, commercials, songs, artwork, poems, etc., right? Secondary analysis is basically anything that's not scholarly articles. That is your literature review. So then you're going to do your data collection. If I have chosen, let's say, a survey, my data collection is I am going to use Facebook to ask 10 people who are in my demographic, right? Which is also in my independent variables, who are in my population set. Now, micro and macro action. What do you think macro means? Let's look it up. Macro. A single instruction that expands automatically, right? Or large scale, overall, often in contrast with micro. The analysis of social events at the macro level. It is, right? So macro is big, micro is little. So for the macro action and micro action, this is part of being a sociologist. How does this affect society? How are we going to change this? If I think that there's an issue with police brutality, what are some ways on the large social that I can do, right? We can do protests. We could, as a larger group, like reinvent social protective programs like police. We could have better training for police, whatever. Microaction is you, the individual, right? So what can you do? What can I do as an individual? I can call my state representatives. I can call Congress. I can help my local police to understand how they are seen. I can whatever, right? So we've just filled this out in the last 10 minutes. We have done 2 of the 3 assignments thus far, right? So all of this stuff is to help you stay on track. Your final paper isn't due until the end of the semester, but the semester goes very quickly. So I want us to make sure that we have all of these things. This APA simple paper outline is your entire final paper, right? So on the first page, this is what I'm going to want. On the second page, this is what I'm going to want. On the third page, this is what I'm going to want, right? Note I have page 1, page 2, page 3 because the title page is on its own, and abstract is on its own. And then the introduction, that's when you start your papers on page 3. None of these, the rest of these have to be on a separate page except for the reference page. If you have any questions, please go to this website and it'll show you a sample paper. If you have any questions on how to format or how to write that, you can go to this website. If you have any other questions, you can call our Writing Center or email our Writing Center and they will help you. The Writing Center slip or email is part of your final grade. You have to use them anyways, right? So it's better to get there early and then to help you set the framework than it is to try to cram it in the last week. It is your responsibility to make sure that you get to the Writing Center at some point, okay? If you have any questions about, well, what does positionality mean? How does this personally relate to you? What about you might influence the way that you interpret the data, right? So this is your sociological lens. What about you? Do you have a family member that's in the police force? Do you have a family member who was in an altercation with the police force? Do you have a family member or have yourself experienced this? What about you, right? Are you a person of color, which makes you have a different relationship with the world? Are you a white body that wants to learn more about police brutality? Is this your future career? I want to be a police officer and I want to understand how people see the police within their community and how we can better serve them. Think about that. And then your literature review. You already did it in your annotated bibliography, so just copy and paste that. Your data analysis, you started telling me here, right? I have used an experiment or a survey to do this, and this is how I did it. And you are going to be very quick, very broad. It's going to be context, right? You're giving us context for the discussion. You're going to compose the main idea or purpose of your data. right? So if you have numbers, if you've counted people, if you've done surveys, if you've done an interview, this is where you put that information. And then the body and the discussion, that's the biggest part of your paper. This is where you're going to use quotes from the articles and from the book. You're going to weave them and through the pieces of your text, right? To support your thesis or not. You're going to identify connections, themes, and patterns. You're going to organize this part by these themes and patterns that you've understood from the literature and from your data. You can use I statements. Make sure you use sociological statement or sociological language, right? So this is the part that should be biggest. This is the part where you start to discuss all the information you've given us. In the literature review, in the data, in your positionality, that's when you start to discuss all of it. Then you're going to write a conclusion. I want you to do, make sure that you explore future ideas, right? Macro, micro, over here. Where can we go from here? Whose voices do we still need to hear from? What hasn't been said? How can we do social change? Cool? And your final presentation is just a presentation of your paper. This, along with all of these handouts I explored today, again, are on D2L or on whatever platform we're currently using. So this final presentation is just about your project. So you're going to do a video component. You're going to make a video that's roughly around 10 minutes long. You are going to review your paper, all elements except future ideas. It needs to have an audio and visual component. Make sure you are exploring all parts of your paper. So this gallery exhibition component, or this audio-visual component, right? This stuff. You need to not only be able to present your paper, but you also need to give some historical and modern examples of how we see this issue. So you can do this by showcasing digital media. You can do paintings, you can do art, you can do songs, you can make a theatrical script, you can do a collage and do a poster board and take a picture of that and put it in your digital video. You can do an art installation. You can do whatever you like. You can take pictures from the internet. You can do a clip of a movie. It just has to have an audio and visual component to it. So basically, you have a 10-minute video exploring your paper and how we as a society can move forward or learn or grow. That's it. So this is the entire semester we will be working on this project. Everything that you turn into me other than the final presentation and the final paper, you can continue to grow and work on. Okay? I am here to help you. I hope this clarifies a whole bunch of stuff. You have your final paper to turn in on Dropbox. You have your final project presentation, this 10-minute video on Dropbox, and then you have your writing portfolio. Your writing portfolio is going to consist of, again, that Writing Center slip, your project proposal, your peer edit worksheet, which is again on D2L or on Canvas, and then you are going to edit someone else's paper. And then you're going to have your brainstorming worksheet. So you've done all of these ahead of time. So you have a final paper, 1, your presentation of your final paper, 2, the writing portfolio, 3. From the writing portfolio, there are 4 components: brainstorming, project proposal, peer edit worksheet, and then your Writing Center email or slip. That's it. Okay? If you have any other questions, please let me know. I hope that this is helpful and clarifying. All right. Again, for the brainstorming worksheet, all you have to do is this front page. All the rest of this stuff, the timeline, that's just to help you stay on track. I don't need you to do it. You can just do this one. Okay? If you want, you can draw it, but make sure I can read it. If you want, you can make your own symbols and shapes. You want to add some more shapes, that's totally cool. Whatever. As long as it looks like a basic brainstorming worksheet. Okay? All right, I hope things are going well. Let me know if you need anything. Thanks so much. Be kind to yourself and others, and I'll see you soon.